a strange phenomenon that many people still cannot explain, but it is frequently mentioned in conversations about parallel universes, is the Mandela effect. This effect began with an event that seemed incredibly small, yet it leads us to question whether parallel universes could exist, where history unfolds differently. The Mandela effect is named after Nelson Mandela, the former president of South Africa, when thousands of people mistakenly remembered that he had passed away in the 1980s, while in reality, he only died in 2013. But what's particularly interesting is that it's not just a few people, but millions of people around the world who share the same memory of Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s. So could it be that we are living in a parallel universe where this event actually happened? Another incident, a violent thunderstorm suddenly swept over the town of Lajamanu, Australia. In just a moment, dark clouds filled the sky, causing passers-by to rush and crowd under shelter from the rain. However, what was strange was that not long after, people began to hear a very unusual sound. Immediately afterward, fish started falling to the ground. Even more bizarre was the fact that most of the fish were still alive when they landed. Instead of continuing to seek shelter from the rain, people rushed out to grab the fish. At that time, many experts proposed the hypothesis that the cause of the fish falling from the sky was a water spout. This type of whirlwind forms over the sea and when it develops, can suck fish from the water into the air. After the water spout approaches land, its structure breaks apart, causing the fish to fall. Although this is a scientifically reasonable hypothesis, it still does not fully explain this strange phenomenon. What is especially puzzling is that waterspouts usually have wind speeds ranging from 64 to 177 kilometers per hour. Additionally, there are other strange occurrences, such as fish falling in desert regions, up to 525 kilometers away from the coastline. A report in Natural History magazine even recorded that in Kata, India, fish fell in a strange straight line, as though a tear suddenly appeared in space-time, bringing fish from another space into our own. This was documented in a reputable scientific journal, not some trivial magazine. This has led some people to wonder whether space-time is always stable and immutable. Perhaps there are moments when it becomes warped or even overlaps with itself. When this happens, nearby objects might pass through space. In fact, throughout history, there have been reported cases of space-time traversal. Some even claim that these individuals traveled to parallel universes. This raises a skeptical question for some, am I just talking nonsense? However, in 2015, NASA captured evidence of a collision between our universe and another one. So what does this really mean? Today, let's explore the parallel universe together. In ancient times, people believed that everything in the world was created by the gods. However, as science became the dominant trend, people began to believe that life evolved from a series of random compounds. They also tried to understand the process of the world's formation from the Big Bang. In 1989, NASA successfully launched the Explorer 66 satellite, the first satellite created specifically for exploring the universe. Based on the Big Bang theory, at the moment of the explosion, the universe would generate a uniform thermal radiation spread throughout space. Therefore, if we could prove the existence of this radiation, it could indirectly prove that the Big Bang actually happened. Sure enough, after Explorer 66 was launched, it captured the cosmic microwave background, and from that point, humanity began to understand the process of the universe's creation. However, after confirming the existence of the microwave background, NASA scientists discovered a strange phenomenon in the image of the microwave background sent back by the explorers. Astronomer Anthony Aguirre discovered a huge cold spot, which was not normal. Normally, the cosmic microwave background would be uniformly distributed across space. Although there would be colder areas, the temperature difference would only be about 0.00001 degrees. However, in the chart, there was a region that was 3 degrees colder than the surrounding areas, indicating that this region could be a void in the universe. But why would there be a void in the universe? Thus, in 2001, NASA launched another satellite, WMAP, to take a clearer picture of the cosmic microwave background. And again, they confirmed the existence of this huge cold spot. British professors Tom Sank and researcher Rory McKen, after receiving this image, could hardly believe their eyes and began researching in astonishment. After many experiments, Tom Sank finally determined that such a cold spot could not exist in the universe unless it had collided with another universe. In other words, this cold spot not only proved the existence of parallel universes, but also demonstrated the possibility of collisions between parallel universes. What is important is that, according to some signs, the ancient people had known about this thousands of years ago. The Mahabharata, the third longest epic in the world, written in the 8th century BC, recounts many inexplicable mysteries. Among them is the story of time travel. The legend says that long ago in India, there was a very powerful kingdom ruled by King Kakumi. The king had a beautiful daughter named Reva Revati, who was not only beautiful but also very intelligent. The king wanted to find the perfect man in the world to marry his daughter. However, in the vast world, who could be the perfect man? When the king was confused, he thought of the creator, Brahma, and decided to ask for help. The king sent a spaceship to the heavenly realm, and after 10 days of flight, he met Brahma. Brahma agreed to help and introduced a suitable candidate to marry the king's daughter. However, after 27 days of flight, when the spaceship returned to Earth, the king discovered that 27 years had passed. Those he knew, if not dead, were very old. The story ends in tragedy, much like a paradox of time travel. The story of King Kakumi might seem illogical, but it seems to align with Albert Einstein's theory of time travel in the twin paradox. Einstein's thought experiment describes a pair of twins, one of whom travels at the speed of light, and when they return to Earth, the twin who stayed behind has aged much more. This was actually confirmed by NASA in 2015. NASA conducted an experiment with twin astronauts Scott and Mark Kelly, who have identical genes. Scott Kelly lived and worked on the International Space Station for 340 days, while Mark Kelly stayed on Earth. The results of the experiment showed that when Scott returned to Earth, his cells had changed. If you take a look at the photo NASA published, could it be that Scott, who had traveled to space and lived in the high-temperature environment of orbiting Earth, appears younger? Upon investigation, NASA discovered something surprising. The telomeres in Scott's cells were longer than those in Mark's, who stayed on Earth. Normally, in the human body, as cells continuously divide, telomeres shorten. Cultured cell research shows that when telomeres shorten to the point where they can no longer protect chromosomes from damage, cells stop dividing or become unstable, and eventually, they are replaced. It turns out, telomeres are like the candles of life. When they burn out, life itself runs out. In other words, the shorter the telomeres, the older we become. This means that this theory of modern scientists is completely accurate. But what astonishes people is that NASA only discovered this in 2015. How did the ancient Indians know about this thousands of years ago? Could it be that the story of King Kakudmi actually happened? Not only in India, but in Japan, there is also a legend about Urashima Taro visiting the Dragon Palace. And when he returns, he discovers that 100 years have passed in the human world. So what if these events weren't just myths, but real cases that actually happened? Do the heavenly realm, the Dragon Palace, or the Western Paradise really exist? And if they do, it's very possible that these are the parallel worlds we often talk about. As you can probably notice, the concept of parallel universes is no longer just a detail in science fiction novels. In fact, it has now become a topic of discussion among many scientists. One of the biggest reasons related to this hypothesis is the sheer size of the universe. According to scientists, about 13.8 billion years ago, the universe was born. We know this because the oldest galaxy humans have ever observed is 13.8 billion light-years away from Earth. However, the number 13.8 billion light-years only represents the age of the universe, not its actual size. Because the universe is expanding at an accelerating rate, even faster than the speed of light, when light from the oldest galaxy takes 13.8 billion years to reach Earth, the boundaries of the universe at that time are no longer the same as they were originally. In fact, based on scientists' calculations, the current size of the universe is likely to have reached a diameter of 93 billion light-years. And the reason we haven't seen it all is because the light from those far regions hasn't reached Earth yet. This brings up a big question. If we can't see the entire universe, how can we be sure that there aren't other universes beyond our own? Imagine you are a bacterium living inside a bubble of boiling water. You see your bubble as the entire world, but you don't know that around you there are thousands of other bubbles, which could also contain bacteria thinking exactly like you. Therefore, for scientists, there is no guarantee that only one universe exists. This also means that, in addition to the universe we can observe, there could be other universes as well. This is the basis for a famous theory, the bubble universe theory. The bubble universe theory suggests that at the time of the Big Bang that created our universe, countless other bubbles also appeared, each bubble representing a separate universe. Due to the vast distance between these bubbles, civilizations in these bubble universes typically cannot see each other. However, as the universe continues to expand at an increasing rate, some of these universes might collide. This is the phenomenon of the cold spot in the universe that we mentioned earlier in the story. At this point, what everyone is probably most curious about is, if parallel universes truly exist, do we have the opportunity to travel to another universe? The answer may lie in a theory that emerged in 1954. At that time, American quantum physicist Hugh Everett III first proposed the many worlds theory. In this theory, he suggested that our world is constantly splitting every minute, every second, because everything in the universe is made of atoms, which in turn consist of electrons, protons, and neutrons. So, scientists have discovered something pretty fascinating. When an electron is unobserved, its state can, well, simultaneously be spinning to the left, spinning to the right, pointing up, or even pointing down. The true state of the electron, though, can only be determined right at the moment the observer actually sees it. Isn't that just mind-boggling? And you know, if electrons in the universe can exist in multiple states all at once, doesn't that kind of mean the universe itself could exist in multiple versions at the same time? It's a pretty incredible thought, isn't it? Perhaps in some universe, I am not a YouTuber, but an astronaut, a hypnotherapist, or even a famous singer. In other words, in the multidimensional universe, there could be countless versions of me, and every minute, every second, those versions split into thousands, millions of other versions. This process continues endlessly. And this is why there is a theory called the Mandela effect, as mentioned at the beginning of the video, because in this timeline, 1 second ago, the character Mandela was still alive, but just 1 second later, we accidentally traveled to another timeline where he had died long ago. Another notable point is that, aside from this natural splitting process, there is another hypothesis based on Einstein's theory. When gravity is strong enough, it can bend space-time. And once space-time is bent, humans could potentially travel through it to reach another time-space, a parallel universe. This concludes my video. I welcome you all to share your perspectives on this topic. Please like, share, and subscribe if you find the channel useful.